one of the extra readings this week is from Ben Witherington. It's just the introduction to a short book that he wrote, and it's valuable. I throw it out because it really does a good job of at least kind of resituating the way we think about what you might call, quote, the rest of life. When you go into a church service, depending on the tradition, you might not hear a whole lot about things like work or play or sex or all the stuff that study, all the stuff that takes up most of the hours in your day. And in other cases, that might be all you hear about. But the point is I think that there's probably two different ways that if you think of theology as a pendulum. I have a professor who once told me that theology is like a pendulum. There's a view, and the view is going to be over here, right? And it's going to go too far because people will glom onto it and they'll think they've figured it out, and that we're going to go with this view, this view, this view, and then we go too far, and the pendulum swings too far, and we've embraced that too much. And so we need to reset, and we recalibrate, and we get here, and this is probably pretty right, but people are going to get excited about it, they glom onto it, and they move the pendulum over in this direction. And so theology kind of swings between poles. And so you might even think about this in Trinitarian theology as the way that sometimes we emphasize the oneness of God to the exclusion of the individualized persons of the Trinity. And then theology will move back and will become so intent on the individualized, differentiated persons of the Trinity, but the Trinity almost becomes, tritheism. I mean, you almost get three different gods, and then we lose the unity. And the right balance is to be in the middle. And I know that personally I tend to emphasize the three persons more than I emphasize the unity. And that might be even a reaction to my own maybe upbringing. I bring this up because when we talk about the rest of life, work, play, sex, study, all the different things that for the most part, diversions, the most things that take up the hours in our day, we tend to either go in one of two directions. And the first direction is that this is the point of life. The rest of life is what life's about, and it should be our focus all the time. This is the view of our contemporary culture, especially in the First World West. First World West is indeed materialistic, consumeristic, and to the exclusion of all else, and you can just turn on the TV or watch a movie, and all you can see is focus on work, play, sex, and study. That's it. That's all that movies are about, really. It's just these things. Acquire this, get this, have sex with that, and this project at work, and move your career forward. This is all there is to life, right? In some ways, this might be a reaction to some of the Puritan heritage or at least the perceived Puritan heritage in American culture, if you're thinking about the United States, or really just Christian culture, Christendom in the West. The notion is that throughout the church's theological history, there have been movements that are just radically opposed, and this is the other swing of the pendulum, to things like work, rest, play, diversions, study. That these things they're totally unimportant. The only thing that matters is reflecting on who God is and His nature and living a holy life. All this other stuff, it's of no value. It's useless. Now I see in the contemporary church, I see a lot of churches that struggle for relevance. They want to be relevant to the culture. Well, they go this way, and they'll talk a lot about work, play, sex, rest, food, all that, and they'll really focus on it a lot, to the point that you wonder if how much theology is there at all, or if the church is really just becoming a reflection of the culture. And that stresses me out a little bit. Other times I see reactions in churches where we're going to be so countercultural that we're going to be against. We're going to devalue work, play, rest, sex, the rest of life, all the things, those types of things. And what I worry about that is that rejection, well, it sometimes I think devalues the goodness of the created order. God did create a good world. It's marred by sin, yes, but it's not bad. And if we're to take anything from the fact that the resurrection is bodily, there's going to be a new heavens and a new earth, like physical, then we should recognize that the things that we do here, work, play, rest, sex, possibly sex, study, those things will really probably be a part of life in the inaugurated kingdom, in the fulfilled kingdom, the kingdom come in its fullness. Those things probably aren't going to pass away. Our life isn't going to be unrecognizable in the next age. And so where do you find that balance? Where is the middle between this, all we think about is work, play, rest, sex, study, da-da-da, food, versus we're going to be so austere and so disconnected from these things that we're going to basically lapse into functional Gnosticism, where the material, the created order, it's no good, it doesn't matter, and we're just going to be contemplating heavenly things. Is there a way to get in the middle? I think the New Testament probably suggests that we have something of a stopgap ethic. We recognize that the kingdom of God is inaugurated. Over here. The kingdom of God is inaugurated, and so the experience that we have of the rest of life is now in some way shaped or pointing to its fullness, its ultimate reality in that kingdom. So when we engage in work, play, rest, sex, food, and study, when we're doing those things, what we're doing is we're adding a theological dimension, saying it's pointing towards this is good, and one of the reasons it's good is because it's pointing towards what will be full, authentic, complete human life in the full kingdom when it arrives in its fullness in the resurrection of the dead. And so we maintain its value, maintain some of its goodness, but at the same time, it's a stopgap ethic because it's saying that kingdom is only inaugurated. We only have it in part. And so we need to relativize the importance of all of these things. We need to recognize that they are just pointers and they are not the ends in themselves, that it's good to have a certain detachment from them. And that's the word that Witherington uses in that short introduction that you'll read this week, is that there is a kind of detachment. This isn't all there is. This isn't the goodness of human life. This isn't flourishing in its fullness. This is a shadow. It's a preview when it's done in its right context and with a view towards the end. And so we maintain the goodness and the value of the rest of life, but at the same time we also maintain some distance from it. It doesn't become all-consuming to the point that we think about nothing else. So I think that's probably at least for me one way to think about trying to reconceive what it is that the culture says is the most important stuff in life in a truly in a way that honors the goodness and value of creation, but at the same time recognizes the kingdom isn't here yet.